Good evening, everyone. I just want to let you know that if your audio is working, we're going to get started in just a couple of minutes. Good evening, everyone. As you're popping in, I just want to let you know if your audio is working. We're going to get started here in just a couple of minutes. Right. Well, good evening, everyone. We are so glad that you are here with us tonight. My name is Maureen Schaefer. I'm the Assistant Provost for Academic Advising and Director at the Academic Advising Center. And I'm really glad to be with you tonight to talk about preparing for your SOAR appointment. There are lots of people with us tonight. I'm hoping students who are coming to their SOAR appointment in the next few weeks. And of course, we also hope that we have some parents and family members, important adults in students' lives here to learn about this process as well. So to make sure we're all on the same page as in terms of language, as we're learning about all of this process of getting you registered for your first semester schedule, I want to just clarify that we use the word SOAR a lot. We like our acronyms, and SOAR stands for Student Online Advising and Registration. And so tonight, what our goal is to walk you through how you can best prepare for your SOAR appointment with your advisor. So up to this point, you've received lots of information from Orientation Services about both SOAR and another program called Becoming a Hawkeye Day. So we want to make sure we're clarifying what these two programs are. So the SOAR appointment with the advisor is the required part of our orientation process that allows you to get registered for classes. It's a 45-minute appointment with your academic advisor that does involve you doing some things in advance to get prepared. And then the Becoming a Hawkeye Day is the other part of our onboarding experience for our entering students. And that's the one-day in-person on-campus orientation experience. And of course, you have information from Orientation Services on their website for how you're registering for both of those. But we just want to clarify that the SOAR appointment with the advisor is the one where you are meeting virtually with an academic advisor and getting registered for your fall schedule. So tonight in our time together, I'm going to share an overview of academic advising at Iowa, and we're going to talk about ways that you can prepare for your SOAR appointment with your advisor. Our goal is for you to be as prepared as possible so that when you meet with your advisor in that 45-minute virtual meeting, that you and your advisor can make the best use of that time. So tonight I have about 35 minutes of content, and then we're going to open it up for questions. Here's my request for you though. Wherever you are, at home or wherever, you can grab a pen, maybe a piece of paper, jot down some things that might be most relevant to you as you go along. But my ask is to wait until I get through the content of the slides before you ask questions. In the past few weeks, when we've done this webinar, a lot of times the questions that come up are things that we end up getting to in future slides. So we will try to cover all of the things that you need to be thinking about to prepare for your appointment. But if you can hold the questions on the Q&A until we get through the slides, I think that will help us make most efficient use of our time. And one thing that I'll share is that tonight's presentation really is to help you get as prepared as possible, but you don't have to know everything after tonight, because you and your advisor are going to be able to have this conversation and you'll have lots of opportunity to ask them questions. So advising at the University of Iowa, let's start with that. Every student entering the University of Iowa is assigned an academic advisor. About 75% or 75% of our incoming students are advised in my office at the Academic Advising Center. We have an advising staff of 43, and students are assigned to their advisor based on the student's primary program of study. Some students at the university entering the university are advised in their college or department if they're directly admitted. So some students might be directly admitted to the Tippie College of Business or directly admitted to the College of Nursing, and those students start in those advising units. At the Academic Advising Center, and that's all of you in the audience tonight, we advise students in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, all of those majors, for students' first 30 hours at the university. There's lots of change and lots of decisions that students make in their first semester or first 2 semesters at the university. And so the Academic Advising Center advisors are helping students to explore all of their academic options during that time. After students reach 30 hours, then they move to a departmental advisor in their major program of study. We also advise open majors, and we advise students who are in a pre-status, meaning that they are starting at the university in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, but they plan to apply to for admission into one of our other colleges. So I imagine we have a number of you tonight with us who are in that pre or interest status. So students who are pre-business, who are coming into the university, not yet in Tippie, but plan to apply to Tippie, are advised with our advisors. Same for the other programs that you see here on the screen. Students will work with their Academic Advising Center advisor on making plans for completing the requirements needed to get into one of those selective admission colleges. And so the Academic Advising Center advisor will work with students on their course selection and planning throughout the year on what they need to do to be the most competitive candidate. The Academic Advising Center advisors also advise students who are in pre-professional programs. So that includes pre-law and a variety of pre-health programs. Now, these programs are designations, they're not majors. So in pre-law and in all of the pre-health programs, at a certain point, you will need to declare a degree granting major. But as you enter the university, it's quite common for students to not be 100% sure yet on which major they're going to choose to go along with that designation. Advisors work with students all 4 years on the pre-professional planning so that students are working during their number of years here, 4 years or 3 years, to be most prepared to apply for one of those professional programs. So up to this point, all of your communication from orientation services has been referring you to the SOAR page on MyUI. So I'm assuming most of you probably know that MyUI is the student portal that students will be using during their entire time at the university. And to start out with, the SOAR page is the place where we have you start your process of getting prepared for your advising appointment. So the SOAR page has a list of tasks that you see here on the screen, and you see all of these important things that students need to read or listen to or sometimes enter information before they can register for their SOAR appointment. It's very important for students to take the time to carefully fill this out, because the more prepared you are through this SOAR page, the more prepared your advisor will be when they see this information on their end. So I assume that all of you here tonight are probably at different stages in your process. Some of you may have completed the SOAR page. Some of you may be just getting started in this process. So keep that in mind, that we expect that all of you will be at some different stages. But we want you to know that in order to once you complete all sections of your SOAR page, at least 1 week prior to the first day of your SOAR program, then you're going to receive an email that allows you to schedule your SOAR appointment. So the most important thing to remember in what I just said is check your university email and do all the things in the SOAR page. So we have a screen here that has the list of the different SOAR programs and the deadline to finish the SOAR page task in order to get the link to schedule your appointment. Now, one thing I want to clarify is that while you're signing up for a SOAR program week, within that week, your individual appointment is going to be a 45-minute appointment. So you're not signing up for an entire week. But when you get the link to the scheduler, then you can sign up for that 45-minute appointment with your advisor. Probably the most important thing for you to remember is that for your deadline, when you are logged into your SOAR page, on the left-hand side, we have it circled in red here. It is listed what your SOAR page deadline is. So if you're wondering about things, that's what you need to pay attention to in order to know when your deadline is, so that you can schedule your appointment with your advisor. So all of the guidance that I'm going to have for you in the next number of slides are going to focus around 6 tasks that we're going to recommend that you do thoroughly in order to be most prepared for the advising appointment with your advisor, so that you and your advisor can make the most of that time. So action item number 1 is to submit all important records. This includes your high school transcript, standardized test scores if you have them, and then any college credit earned if you have college credit coming in. If you haven't done so already, make sure your high school knows to send your transcript. But if you've earned any credit while in high school, any college credit, you need to have the transcript sent to us from the institution where you earned the credit. Your high school transcript is not sufficient to give us proof of your college credit. And then AP credit comes from the College Board, so that needs to come directly to us from the College Board. And a question that I know a lot of you probably have right now is, what if my transcripts aren't there yet? And right now, especially in early June, most people's transcripts are not here yet. So don't worry about that at all. On the SOAR page, you have a place to report transfer credit or credit by exam. What this allows us to do, if we don't have your transcript here yet, is it gives your advisor the information they need to best prepare for the appointment with you. So we really rely on you to put that information into the SOAR page so that we know what credit we're expecting you to have. And this is super important because we don't want you to retake a class that you already have college credit for. The best place for you to check to see if your transcripts are here is on your admissions profile. This slide here gives a screenshot of the admissions profile, and the red box that you see here indicates what transcripts are missing and what we have. So that's the best place for you to check, and not only now, but throughout the summer, to check to see if we have the transcripts that we are supposed to have for you. So that's something that happens all throughout the summer. So don't worry about that quite yet, but we just most definitely want to make sure that those things are on the way. All right. The second action item is that you need to complete before your advising appointment are placement exams. The first 2 are math and chemistry. Students will be instructed on their SOAR page whether or not they should take the math or chemistry placement test based on their major. If you took the ALEX math placement test at another institution, you do need to take it at the University of Iowa. Your advisor will see the results of your placement test scores, and then they will provide you with information on where they're going to recommend you start in both math and chemistry. Keep in mind that these placement tests are for placement purposes only. You don't earn credit for these, so we want you to honestly take the exam, do the best that you can, but our overall goal really is for you to take the course in the fall where we know that you will be most successful. Now, going back to the SOAR page, this is where you will see information about the math and chemistry placement tests listed. And when you click on these, it will tell you specifically if you need to take the math or chemistry placement test for your major. Note that everyone has access to these tests, though. So if you're thinking of changing your major to something that might require math or chemistry, we definitely want you to go ahead and take these exams. So that's pretty common for people to come in maybe as an open major, but somebody might be thinking of pre-health as a major, or somebody has an interest, a declared major in something else, but they think they might do business, and so they might need to take the math placement. When all else fails, just take the exam while the information is fresh in your mind. That way, when you and your advisor meet, then you can talk about what's going to be the most appropriate starting place for both math and chemistry. And then you and your advisor really will have a more thorough conversation about where we want you to start. All right. The third placement test we have is for world language. We get a lot of questions about world language, and I'm just going to address a few of them here. Keep in mind, you don't have to have this all figured out prior to your advising appointment. But the main question we get about the world language placement test is, do I need to take it? Who should take it? You should take it if you plan to continue studying the language that you took in high school. If you're not planning to continue that same language, you do not need to take the world language placement test. The second most common thing that we want to tell people about related to the world language is that in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, there are 3 pathways to completing the world language requirement. And I think Jane is going to put that in the chat for you, so you'll have a link to those, that information about world language. But that's something that's pretty specific to you, and your advisor will talk more about that when you meet. And then we do have a music theory test that only shows up for music students. So the other thing that I want to remind you of is as you go through the SOAR page, you will see this little box that you do have to click to confirm that you've carefully reviewed the content. That allows you to move forward and allows you to get to the point where you can schedule your SOAR appointment. So we don't want you to skip that part of it. Definitely pay attention and click the box along the way that says that you've read the information that's there. Okay, at this point, we're going to split the next step into 2 groups. And one is for our entering first-year students from high school, and then the other piece that I'm going to add in just a few minutes is for our transfer students. So our first-year students who are coming directly from high school, even if you have transfer credit, regardless of how much credit you've earned, you are required to add a course to the course cart before you will be able to schedule your SOAR appointment. This is an important part of the process, and we walk you through it in the videos on the SOAR page. So you might be wondering, what should I put in my course cart? We do this because we want you to spend a little bit of time using the schedule builder and the course cart so that you get comfortable with the system before you meet with your advisor. So you can add one of these first-year experiences to your course cart just to practice with it. By adding it to the course cart, you are not officially registering for the class. So on the SOAR page, we do provide information about these different first-year experiences. We use these as an example for you to add to your course cart just because they're classes that oftentimes first-year students are taking. These are all programs that are designed specifically with first-year students in mind, to help them with their transition to the university. And they are small classes with faculty and staff members who really love working with first-year students. Some of them are related to helping you with your academic transition to the university. I'll point out in particular, the College Transition Program has a seminar that helps with learning in college, how you learn, and academic success strategies to be successful in college. Some of the options through the College Transition Program allow students to take a study group with some other students in their seminar where they study for a shared general education course together, and it provides a strong foundation of academic support as you transition to the university. So all of these are programs that you can read more about on the SOAR page, and watch the video about them, but we definitely want you to have one of those in your course cart before you're scheduling your SOAR appointment. So the first year experience information, I have the link here on the new student website. And also when you are in the schedule builder and you are looking at these first year experiences, this just shows you that there's a green add to schedule builder notation here that you click on it and then it puts it in your course cart for you. So you're not making a commitment that you're definitely taking that in the first semester, but your advisor can see what you have in there. And then the two of you can talk about the first year experience program that might be a good fit for you. All right, so transfer students. For transfer students with us tonight, you're not required to add a first year experience course to the course card in order to schedule your SOAR appointment, but we would encourage you to think about enrolling in the transfer transition, which is similar to our college transition program, but focuses on the specific needs and experiences of our transfer students. So that is something that is available to you as you enter the University of Iowa, and we encourage you to take a look at that. All right, action item number 4 is for everyone in our audience today. Now you're ready to try out Schedule Builder a little bit more and look at a wide variety of courses to put in your course cart to practice this before you meet with your advisor. There are a number of short videos on the SOAR page that provide instructions on how to use these tools. So please take the time to look at these videos. The most important thing for you to know right now is that we will walk through, we will walk you through how to look for courses. And at first, of course, with any new system, it's new and can seem a little overwhelming to learn, but we'll walk you through how to do it. The course cart is where you will put some of these courses that are of interest to you, and your advisor can see that course cart before you meet. And so it can be helpful for advisors to kind of glance at the titles of the courses of things that you're thinking about before you get here. But again, you're not officially registering for them, so there's not a way that you can break this, and there's not a way that you can do this wrong. Actually, the only way that you can do this wrong would be to show up for your appointment with nothing in your course cart. So, so we want you to play around with things with the courses. One of the things that I will mention is that as you go along, if you run into courses that are closed, keep in mind that MyUI changes all the time related to seats and classes. We work really hard to make sure that we have enough seats and classes throughout all the weeks of our SOAR program. So what you see the day that you're practicing with your schedule will likely be different than the day that you register. So don't spend a lot of time worrying about that the day when you're practicing. You and your advisor will talk about that on the day that you register. Okay, let's go move on here. So action item number 5 is to read the SOAR note from your advisor. So your advisor will prepare for your appointment with you to learn what they can about you, to look at what you have shared on the SOAR page about your interest in your major, about your transfer credit, any other credit you have coming in. And then they will send you a note through your SOAR page in advance of your appointment. I recommend checking this maybe the Thursday or Friday prior to the week of your SOAR appointment. Keep in mind that advisors are advising students every day, and they're also preparing for students that they're going to see next week at SOAR. So if you log into your SOAR page and you don't see the advising note at first, just come back and check it again. But this is where your advisor will reach out to give you some specific guidance on some things that they recommend that you take a look at. And then action item number 6. This is super important. It's testing your technology. So in the SOAR page, there is a video called Using Zoom for Your SOAR Appointment. And we really, really want you to pay attention to this. We know that for a variety of students, Zoom is not something that they're using regularly anymore. So we really want you to get comfortable with this so that you don't waste precious minutes in your SOAR appointment having to deal with technology issues. So there is a video that will show you what you need to do. There's also a video specifically for Mac because things are different with Macs, but you will need to share your screen. You and your advisor will be looking at things together as you register. We do recommend that you download the University of Iowa licensed version on the Zoom app. The browser does not play nicely with SOAR appointments. So we have learned that from experience. So we really encourage you to get the technology tested. And we strongly recommend that you are on a computer and not on your phone. Because you're sharing screens and you and your advisor are working with Schedule Builder and you're actually registering during that meeting, it is much easier if you are on a computer. So we appreciate that. So then all of this preparation is so that you can meet your advisor. And first of all, your advisor will be excited to meet you. You will have 45 minutes set aside for this meeting. We encourage you to be in a quiet, private space because your advisor will ask you questions. They are interested in getting to know you. They will ask questions about your major, about your interests, your goals at the University of Iowa, and it's best if you are able to be in a space where you can share those things openly. We always tell students that the more your advisor can learn about you, the better they are able to help you. So during this meeting, they're going to get to know you. You're going to talk about placement test scores. You're going to talk about the courses in your course cart. They're going to give you recommendations for the courses that you're taking or that they want you to be looking at for your first semester schedule. And through that 45-minute appointment, you're going to register for your classes. So that's the exciting part of it. Once you officially have your schedule, and then when you end that appointment with your advisor, then you are going to be talking to them about next steps and what is going to happen between now and when school starts. Sometimes there are follow-up things that students and advisors follow up on, especially if you have maybe AP scores that are coming in early July or once transcripts come in. So there may need to be some follow-up, but you and your advisor will make plans for that. So the fall schedule that you are registered for is going to, of course, be based on what you are telling your advisor you want to do, your goals at the university, your placement test scores. Your advisor will have a variety of goals for you that they have in mind for what we consider to be a successful first semester schedule. And that includes classes that are appropriate for your placement test scores. We want you to be in classes that are helping you to make progress towards degree programs that you're interested in. We certainly will talk with you about an appropriate number of overall hours to take, how many classes. We're going to talk about course types and making sure that you have some variety in your schedule. That includes not only on course topics, but also we like you to have some larger classes and some smaller classes to balance things out. And then your advisor, of course, will want to know what else you're doing other than your classes, because students are busy, and in order to get the most out of their college experience, we know that there are other things that you'll be doing. A lot of students work. Some students are in extracurricular activities that are time consuming. So that's important for your advisor to know as well. And all of the classes on your schedule, we will really talk with you about the fact that we want you to know every semester where each of your classes are contributing to your overall degree program. And we use this pie chart to show students that the 120 hours you need to graduate, those classes come from your major, electives, and the general education program. And in our work with students as advisors, we want students to know how they determine which category each of their classes is coming from each semester. Sometimes a myth is that elective classes are something that you wait to take later, that those aren't counting for the overall degree program. And we most definitely want to let you know that those are part of the 120 hours that you need to graduate. So it's very common for students to be in classes in all three of these categories in their first semester schedule. So that's something that you and your advisor will come back to again and again over your time with us. So in terms of overall hours, students often ask, of course, how many classes should I take? What's not enough? What's too much? In general, most classes are worth 3 semester hours. That's the most common number of semester hours for an individual course. But for first year students, an individual course can range from 1 all the way up to 5 semester hours for an individual class. So for an average first year student, we usually see 4 main academic classes and a total of about 15 to 16 semester hours. 12 hours is what you need to be full-time. But of course, along the way, we're talking with students about their overall plan to graduation. And if somebody's coming in without any credit earned already, in order to graduate in 4 years, you need to be going at the rate of about 15 per semester or 30 per year. Now, we know that this is very individual to you, and so you and your advisor along the way will be talking about your plan to graduation. We know that some students who come in with college credit already may want to graduate in shorter than 4 years, and that's something certainly to share with your advisor very early on. So you'll have plenty of time to talk about that long-term planning with them. So after that SOAR appointment, you and your advisor will stay in touch if there are things you need to follow up on this summer. Changes can be made to your schedule after your SOAR appointment. So if there's anything that you're uncertain about, you can go back in and make changes. And like I said, once transcripts come in or AP scores come in, if you need to make an adjustment, you and your advisor can follow up on that. Now, I do want to make sure that you know that this SOAR appointment really is focused on the fall semester schedule. There will be plenty of time for some longer term planning, and longer term planning that you'll do with your advisor during the academic year is something that will require your degree audit that you that you will have access to all during your time here. Your degree audit is your path through the University of Iowa that helps you determine where you are in terms of making progress for your overall degree program. So that will be something that you and your advisor will use. And I always tell students that's a great thing for them to show their family and other important adults in their life who are interested in their progress through the university. There will be time for longer term planning once you meet with your advisor in the fall. So, in speaking of families and other important people in students' lives, I do want to address the fact that throughout all of this, of course, I'm talking about the student's relationship with their advisor, which is very important, but we know that parents and family and other important adults in your life may be interested in your planning as well. And so we ask in general for students to be sharing information with their families about their overall planning and degree requirements. But we are available if anyone else has questions and wants to talk to us as well. We do adhere to the federal privacy law that protects the privacy rights of students, which I know you'll learn about through this orientation process. But I find that there's lots of information that we can share with families. We really want to help you all understand how this all works because we know that we're all here to help the student. So we encourage your questions, but we also will be encouraging students to understand their overall degree planning so that they get to the point where they can explain how this is all working. Now, we do get the question about whether or not students should have anyone else in the SOAR appointment with them. We strongly encourage for students to be in the SOAR meeting with their advisor one-on-one so that the student and the advisor can get to know each other. If parents or family or other folks have questions, we always let our advisors know that at the end of the appointment, if somebody else wants to pop on the screen and the student's okay with it, we are okay with that. But this is a great time for the student and the advisor to get to know each other well, and for them to be able to focus on that fall semester schedule. So we do have some information on our Academic Advising Center website about SOAR, and have some information for parents and families. And of course, we also have, through the Becoming a Hawkeye Day, parents and families will have access to a whole host of other information as well that's geared specifically for them. So at this point, I am going to pause for just a moment because my colleagues have been answering questions behind the scenes. Sometimes there are some themes in the questions that they will want me to address for everybody. So I'll pause just a moment, and Jane, let me know if there are specific things you want me to address.
Well, Mo, thanks for turning it over. I can only report that we don't have any questions so far. So for all of you who are here in our webinar tonight, the Q&A is open. If you have any questions lingering after Mo's presentation, please feel free to add those to the Q&A, and we will do our best to get everybody's questions answered here.
Okay, we'll give that a little pause. I'll advance it to the next slide just so folks can see the contact information for both orientation services and the Academic Advising Center if there are specific things people need to follow up on. But we'll give it just a little pause here because we want to make sure that we can get your questions answered as well.
Hi, Mo, I've got a question here. What does making an academic designation look like, namely pre-law or pre-health? I'm wondering if you might just speak generally about how those designations might differ from a degree granting major.
Yeah, great question. So that will be something that students can talk to their advisor about in their appointment. Sometimes students come in with one major declared, but they tell us that they want to add pre-law or they want to add pre-med. And so these designations show up similar to a major, but we tell students that we call them designations because they're not degree granting majors. You can't graduate with pre-law. You can't graduate with pre-med. Those are always secondary, and there has to be a primary program of study. So when students start at the university, though, that can be their only designation to start out with. The College of Liberal Arts and Sciences gives students until they earn 60 hours before they need to have a degree granting major declared. So there's nothing that holds a student back from having pre-med or pre-law as their only designation to start out with. But as they near 60 hours, which for most students is about halfway through, then the advisor and the student will be talking about what degree granting major is going to be the most appropriate for that student. But the student and the advisor can certainly talk about that in their SOAR appointment if the student is thinking about being in any of those pre-professional programs.
Thanks, Mo.
Mhm.
We've got another one that is kind of related to transcripts and when we should send them in and what timing looks like for that. So, the question that we have is from someone who is taking a summer class right now that doesn't end until July 31st. That student would like to know if they should wait to send their summer transcript until after it's over, or if that will be too long, and if it's going to affect the appointment that they have with their advisor.
Yeah. So good, very good question. And not having a transcript will not affect the appointment. We really do the best that we can by asking you good questions about what are you taking, what's the course number, because the student and the advisor can look up. They have access to information to see how classes transfer here. My opinion is that if you're taking a summer class, you want to wait until that grade is on the transcript before having the official transcript sent to the University of Iowa. So that would be okay to have that sent once that class is over. But you can go ahead and add that course number and title and the institution into the transfer credit portion of your SOAR page so that your advisor knows what you're taking. So this summer gets just a little tricky with when these transcripts come in. So we do the best we can to estimate, but if we know the school and we know the course title and the course number, we can find that information to make sure that we don't have you take the same class here. It's a really good question.
Great. I have a question here about first year experiences. Somebody would like to know if it's required for first year students to take a first year course or seminar or experience, as mentioned earlier. Do you want to address that one a little bit about the reasons why someone would want to be in a first year experience?
Yeah, yeah. So I think a good thing for me to clarify is with what I've been talking about tonight, what is required to schedule the SOAR appointment is that there's a first year experience course in the course cart. So that's very important. Now, when it comes to are you required to take one, that is something that the student and the advisor will talk about in the appointment. And each of those first year experience programs has different goals. And so if you can read about those in advance, see what might be of interest to you, if that might be of help to you as you transition to the university, we strongly encourage them. Most of our first year experience opportunities are only available in a student's very first semester at Iowa. So you do have this limited time to take advantage of this. And so that's why we encourage students to look at them, to think, does this match with what you are interested in right now and what you need with your transition? Talk to people in your family about it, talk with your advisor about it, and then make the decision on your own. They are all unique, but ultimately it is your decision. So the end answer is they're not required for you to take in the fall, but they are required for entering first year students to have one in their course card.
That's great. Thanks, Mo. Hey, I have a question from a student who is planning on doing a double major in two different disciplines. And this is a pretty common question that they have one major that's already declared, but they have a second major in mind. I'm wondering if you can address questions about adding second majors or maybe even changing majors at the SOAR appointment.
Yeah. That is precisely why the advisor will start the conversation with, I see that you're listed as X, I see that you're listed as a psychology major. Tell me more. Do you have other interests? So from the very beginning of that appointment, you will have an opportunity to tell your advisor what you're thinking about. And really, sometimes students are interested in a few different things. They might want to only declare one right now, and we say, okay, let's leave it at that major. But when we meet in the fall, we'll come back to that. Other times, students say, no, I put this major down of that I know that I want to do, but I'm also thinking about this second one and I would like to add it. And then the advisor will have that added. So we are very fortunate at the University of Iowa that you are able to be flexible with this. We have time for students to explore and see what they think. During the semester, students change their major quite a bit. And so that's exactly what advising is here for, is to help students explore, learn what they can, but then also we do want you to have all the information that you need for appropriate academic planning, because we assume you don't want to be here forever. And your parents probably don't want to pay for you to be here forever. So the academic planning portion of it is really important. But right now, I would say share with your advisor all of the things that are of interest to you, and then you and your advisor will determine what you'll have officially listed and then what you might want to come back to in the fall. Sometimes students say, I'm interested in this. I don't know if I'll do a second major, or I may do a minor, and that's okay. It's probably not going to make a huge difference if you decide that at your SOAR appointment or when you meet with your advisor in September. So tell them all the things you're interested in.
That's great. Thanks, Mo. I have a great question. I'd love to answer this one because it gives us a chance to explain how advising works at the University of Iowa. We have a question about whether or not a student will have the same advisor throughout their entire college career.
Yeah. So it is unlikely at the University of Iowa that students would have the same advisor all 4 years. It really does depend on the major. What I early on in my slides, when I was talking about how advising at Iowa works, our system is set up on the foundation of every student is always assigned to an academic advisor throughout their entire time here. Now, who that person is can vary depending on where a student is in their program. So in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, students are starting with an advisor at the Academic Advising Center for their first 29 hours, and then they transition to an advisor in their major department. Along the way, in most departments in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, that's a prime person who's in a primary advising role, but we also have faculty mentors, and faculty are very important in a student's academic journey as well. So we teach students to build their advising team, that there are going to be a variety of people who are going to be part of that team. And advisors will talk with students about the advising transition when that takes place. So it really does vary depending on your major and the college as to if you're going to stay with that same person for the rest of your time. But we have an advising page in my UI, just like we have a SOAR page. Once you transition to being a student, you'll have an advising page, and you always have your academic advising information there. So we teach students how to always access that so they know who is part of their advising team.
Thanks, Mo. I do have another question that's coming in, and it is about um, whether or not advisors will be able to answer questions about courses for the summer for next year. And I'm wondering if you could just address in general what they will talk about. So in terms of, planning for fall and not really for spring or summer just yet.
Yeah. So I would say at the SOAR appointment that you're about to have with your advisor, the main focus of that really is on getting you registered for your fall semester schedule, and a schedule that you're happy with that matches all of those things that we talked about earlier. Um, Students can share as much as they want, and sometimes students do, and they say, I'm coming in with a lot of credit. I want to graduate in 3 years. I want to take summer classes. I want to study abroad. And the advisor will make note of those things because those things are super important about your story, and it's something that the advisor wants to remember about you. Now, you might not be able to get all of that in this SOAR appointment. So I would say set your expectations so that you're sharing information with your advisor, but that some of these things you're going to come back to when you meet for what we call the planning appointment in the fall. The planning appointment in September or October is when the student comes into the office, we meet in person, the advisor and the student go over the degree audit, talk about classes, and really dig into the planning a little bit more. So I would say all of those things that might feel present on your mind right now, go ahead and mention them, but it may be that you and your advisor get a little more into depth when you come in the fall.
Thanks. I'm wondering if you could answer this question for students who are expecting high school dual enrollment credit from an institution, but they might not have the course numbers of those courses at the institution. I'm just wondering if you could address how we tend to look at the course numbers rather than the course titles to know that a student is not duplicating in class.
Oh, that's a good one. I would work really hard to try to find somewhere in your high school information or paperwork you filled out with the community college to try to get that course number. Um, Advisors and students will do the best that they can in the appointment. Ultimately, our goal is for no student to retake a class they already have credit for, because you can't earn credit twice. So we are really careful with this, that the course number matters, and the institution that you took it at, that we have those pieces of information. The student and the advisor in the appointment can look at the transfer course equivalency, but I think in general, my recommendation is for you to work very hard to try to get that exact course number. We'll do the best that we can, but again, this is for your best interest, that we don't want you to end up enrolling in a course that you already have credit for. That's not a situation anybody wants to be in.
Thanks, Mo. When students add courses to the schedule builder, do they factor in the location and travel time between classes?
It's a good question.
I would
It
say not at this point, but
Yes, it,
yeah.
it so it factors in, but probably not at the point that you're just adding it to Schedule Builder. When you get to the point where you're building schedules is when that factors in. So going ahead and putting something into Schedule Builder or into the course cart, I would say pick it based on the specific class. Once you get to the point where you and your advisor are building schedules, especially if classes are back to back, then we are looking at locations, because that does matter. When students are on the side of the river that the main campus is on, closer to downtown Iowa City, 10 minutes in between class is doable to get from one place to the other, but we usually don't recommend that students cross the river with that 10-minute back to back. So that will factor in once you start building schedules. But yeah, like you said, Jane, at the beginning of the process, I would say pick based on the specific class.
Thanks, Mo. We have an old tried and true trusty question that we get almost every time, and it's really important. So the question is, one of our attendees has a friend who attended SOAR already, and that friend said that several classes are already full. What do we do about those classes? Are they going to open up, or are you going to have to wait until spring semester for those courses? I wonder if you could address that.
Yeah, so we work really hard to open up seats in classes throughout the weeks of SOAR. And so my best advice for you right now is, if you heard that from somebody, to not panic, because it could be that the moment that they registered is when all of the seats in chemistry for that day were gone, and the very next day more opened. So my UI is constantly changing. We are also monitoring classes. We are opening more seats in classes throughout all of these weeks of SOAR. So my main recommendation right now is to not get stressed over that, to wait until you have your appointment with your advisor, register for what you're registering for that day, and advisors will talk with students about making changes. Because if there's a particular section or a class that you didn't get that was closed the day that you register, students do continue to check my UI, and sometimes other students drop classes and then an opening appears. We do have a wait list feature on my UI, so students can get on a wait list for a different section, and if somebody else drops, then they get a wait list offer. So things change so much every day up until when classes begin, that it's too early to worry about that. When you meet with your advisor, you and your advisor will talk about the reality of, if there is something that your advisor knows there won't be any more seats in. But a lot of the classes for first year students, we are opening more seats every week throughout SOAR.
Thanks, Mo.
Mhm.
How do students change their major? Did we talk about this one already? Students who've taken their major?
Yeah, so that's something that I really will recommend that students talk with their advisor about in the appointment. Students can't change their major on their own. And so they do need to go through an advisor in order to do that. So for some students, that's at the SOAR appointment. For some students, that's when they are here in the fall and they come meet with their advisor for a planning appointment and change their major, but it is through their advisor.
Mo, does every first year student need to take a math class?
No. So math is really dependent on the major. So we talked earlier about placement exams, the math placement exam, chemistry placement exam, both of those are dependent on the major and if the student needs a specific math class for their major. So the best place for an individual student to look at that is on their own SOAR page because your SOAR page will tell you if your major that you're declared in right now requires you to have a specific math class and therefore we need you to take the placement test. If you're thinking about doing something other than the major that you are declared in, the Orientation Services website does have information about math and chemistry placement needed for all of the majors at Iowa. So you could check that if there's something else that you're thinking about. So a lot of the majors in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences require a quantitative or formal reasoning class for their general education program, but there's a whole list of courses that they can choose from that are not all from the math department. So this really does vary depending on your major.
Mo, I've got a question about when students may have had an IEP in high school and they need accommodations for a host of reasons. Is that transfer automatic? What do students need to do in order to address getting accommodations?
Right. So it's really great question to ask right now at this point in time because you have plenty of time to get everything taken care of before fall because things do not transfer over from high school. So we have an office on campus called Student Disability Services, and that is the office that we would encourage students and families to connect with, to go to their website, to read all of the information about what they require and how accommodations work. So now is the perfect time to be kind of getting all your ducks in a row for that process to know what is available to you so that you can get everything lined up so that you have that support ready when school starts. So very good question. And we most definitely need you to make that effort to reach out to that office and take care of that paperwork.
In addition to that, I'm going to go ahead and add the website for the Student Disability
Oh, thank
Services
you.
office to the chat, just for anyone who is interested. Um, and if we have time for one more, um, we've got a student who is asking a question about there's a Becoming a Hawkeye class that's required during the first year attending UI, and whether or not that class counts for credit, which is necessary to be full-time. I'm assuming that this question refers to Success at Iowa. I'm wondering if you want to just let people know what Success at Iowa is.
Yeah, yeah. So I also, when I read that, assumed that we're probably talking about Success at Iowa. And Success at Iowa is a one semester hour class that all entering students are automatically registered for and take in their first semester. And it's a variety of this is online. It's not a class that you go to, and it's online modules, but that we're covering a lot of information that all entering students, first years and transfers need. And so students and advisors will be able to talk about that more during the appointment. Because there was a second part to that, wasn't there, Jane, about how many hours?
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, it does count as one semester hour of credit. So it's not one that we would consider to be one of your main academic classes. When I made reference earlier to typically students are taking 4 main academic classes, then there are some 1 or 2 semester hour classes that oftentimes students have in addition, but it's the 4 main academic classes that when we think about time management and what's a reasonable schedule, that's what we're really focusing on. So Success at Iowa is not, I mean, it'll add an hour to that, but it's not one of your main classes that will take a huge amount of time.
Thanks, Mo.
Yep.
Finally, in our sort of closing time, I'm going to go ahead and just post the link to the university billing office because we've had a few questions today about assessment of your university bill. And I want to make sure that everybody knows where to find that information. Let me just pull that up here.
All right. Thank you for doing that, Jane. And everybody, thank you for your very good questions. And remember, our focus tonight was really to prepare you as much as possible for the advising appointment, but we don't need you to have everything figured out yet. So your advisor is looking forward to meeting you, and we are excited to have you in the fall. And hopefully we'll see some of you on campus for Becoming a Hawkeye Day as well. Did you put that in there, Jane?
I did and Lee Dunn did at the same time, it looks
Okay.
like.
Very good. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your night. Thanks for spending some time with us this evening. Take care.